Okay. Happy Bowtie Friday. I'm here with Alex the Entreprenerd, and we're going to look at his stack. We're going to do a Shill Your Stack session. He's got an opinionated stack, like all of us, and we're going to dig in, and he says it's good for noobs. And I just want to get in and look at it and see how me being a new person to Ethereum that wants to build a decentralized app, where to go, what tools to use, what the mental model is. Here we go. Alex the Entrepreneur. You want to share your screen? Give us an
Thank you
intro
for
to
having me,
you.
Austin.
Yeah.
I've been, I'd say I've a very varied background, but fundamentally for the last couple of years, I've been teaching mostly one-on-ones to mentors on a website called Code Mentor. And I'm just taking my mentoring practice to just, one-on-ones with private students. And so my main goal as kind of a solopreneur is to just build something in the most effective way. So, when you look at your opportunity cost, I just would rather, pay $7 to get a domain and then host it on Netlify, or find a solution that allows me to just get it done as fast as I can, because, you're just seeking opportunity as an entrepreneur. And that's kind of my main goal with the way I teach is I just want to show that there are easy ways to build your own product. And I just enjoy seeing other people succeed. So that's kind of my entire motto.
I love
And
building products too. Focusing on getting the product shipped is a favorite of mine. So I'm going to enjoy
yeah,
this.
I also think as kind of a teacher, like you get such a advantageous point, because you can explore many stacks and much tech, a lot more tech than if you were to just work on one product. Kind of the downside is that you can't fully commit to each one of them. So, what you sacrifice, like the remaining 80% of work that gives that 20% extra benefit, you kind of sacrifice it. But the main advantage is that you get to, wear multiple hats every year. And for me, that has been such a I feel very lucky about it, because again, I can try new tech, new stuff. And so I'm always learning, which is beautiful. And the way I see it is you're just solving a piece of the puzzle. So with this new tech, specifically, I started working with Magic, which we also implemented on the polymarket.com website. And I have to preface that I've been sponsored by Magic to develop that. So I'll say honestly, I was sponsored, and the story was very simple. We used the product, I liked it, and I'm like, okay, guys, why don't you guys pay me to make a video about you? So that's the story. And what I ended up doing, since I've have hundreds of ideas, is I ended up building a simple quick start template that is based on Next.js, TypeScript, and it uses Magic for authentication. And then I added a bunch of nice to have, such as Jest, ESLint, etc., to make it so that you just get it right the first time. You don't have to really think about it. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, if that's okay with you.
Yes, please. That's awesome. Thinking about this as like a
Amazing.
freestanding app that someone can just fork, and then they can let me move you over here. They can fork the repo, they can make small changes. It's a freestanding app from the start. That's what I'm all about. So I'm excited to see this.
Amazing. So if you go on GitHub, you'll find me at Gallo Das Ballo, or you can also search for Alex the Entrepreneur. You'll find me. If you search for me, you'll eventually find me. But basically, the template is called Next.js Magic ESLint. And later today, I also want to show you the Magic wallet, which is one way in which you can actually use the template to build a Ethereum wallet. Specifically, the template again uses Next.js, and the reason why we use Next.js is there's two reasons why I highly recommend everyone to at least try Next.js. The first one is that it's opinionated and it's very simple to get started with, and you get access to server-side rendering. So if we want to compare stacks and have a little bit of competition, the beauty of Austin's stack is that if you use it with scaffold.eth, you get started immediately. But then in a few months, you're going to have the downside that you don't have server-side rendering. And as you build a professional application, server-side rendering becomes literally the differentiating factor. So we could literally go on a bunch of DeFi apps, and we can see that the apps that have server-side rendering provide a superior experience. I'm not sure if that's okay with you, but we can look at for 2 seconds at what Compound does, right? Where they load like this. Like the snappiness of loading is really important. Let's look at yearn.finance, which changes every week at this point. So they are moving to Vercel as well. And that's the second part, but they're basically moving to Next.js as well, because instead of having to load all of this stuff from chain, which is really slow, it may take minutes, etc., you can just have these statically cached as a static build. And that way the first paint for the majority of new users will be fast. The time to interactivity for Web3 will still be slow because, you know, the Web3 takes time, etc. But at least that first paint to get your attention, which really does make a difference, you get that out of the box if you end up using Next.js. And the other thing that I want to mention in working theory, I believe that as of today, you know, February 2021, Vercel is almost operating at a loss, where they pay more than what they ask you to host your website. So your website ends up loading way faster than if you were to spin up your own EC2 and, you know, have your own server. So unless you are really serious about your underlying tech, you probably should use Vercel because it takes like 2 minutes to use. So I highly recommend that. That said,
One thing to even dive into there a little bit more, thinking
yeah,
about user experience throughout the time of Ethereum, right? There used to be a time where you didn't get
yeah,
anything until you logged in with your MetaMask, right? And finally
yeah, and
dApp
that's still
builders
true.
figured out like, okay, wait a minute, let's have this be read only at first, and you can get in and look, and then until you need to make a transaction, does it actually need to
Yeah.
connect to the wallet? This is like taking that a step further. You should be able to land, you should get all the numbers, you should be read only, and it should be almost instantaneous like any other Web2 app. But then when you need to get in and start like querying certain numbers or actually signing transactions, you can kind of step into those things. Totally good thing
Yeah.
to look at.
Absolutely. And that kind of is the main challenge you'll see with just building a pure Web3 application, like as a purist versus, you know, finding compromises in centralized caches, especially. I would say a centralized cache will always provide a better experience. And perhaps we can dig into that later as we start using this. But fundamentally, the core of the Next.js Magic ESLint Jest template is that you can just click on use this template and you can fork it. What I did is already downloaded it locally, and I'll show you. And fundamentally, we have a Next.js application with all the nice to haves already set up. So let me get that open on study. Just make sure I'm in the right place. Okay.
This is good. I'm liking this though. A good Shill your stack session should have some code, should have some terminals. It's starting to feel
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, I'm not sure if you want to publish this moment, but like something that we could do is like we could actually go through the history of what we did at Polymarket, which, by the way, I'm leaving Polymarket in a few weeks. But we could go through a bunch of tricks and techniques we use to improve load optimization there, and we can also discuss the tricks we used, which I believe is really beneficial. And I think all the tech will kind of fall into place if that's something that becomes interesting. But then I'll just resume with the product. So fundamentally, again, there's a bunch of opinions here, and the only real commitment you're making when you're using this stack is that you're gonna need to use a magic key from Magic, which you can get for free at magic.link. Again, they sponsored a few of my videos. I appreciate what they did. And then I'll also show you what I did with this stack and the amount of productivity I was able to have and the reason why I'm such a fan of this. So again, if I'm gonna commit to one set of technologies for this year to build my own product so that I can, have recurring revenue, explore new opportunities, learn new tech, and focus on what truly matters, such as, let's say, getting the DeFi opportunity, I'm going to have to commit to a certain amount of tech and to a certain amount of opinions. And in this case, I'm committing to using Next.js for server-side rendering and as a framework. I'm committing to the basics of ESLint and Jest to make sure my code is clean and unit tested. And then I'm using Magic just as a shortcut for authentication, security, and as you'll see, also to have a provider and a signer when it comes to interacting with the Ethereum chain. So the the implementation starts by simply looking at the context. And that's kind of like if you install a Next.js application, the pages folder is you should be familiar with. It's just you put a file in here and you get a new page out of it. So let me just start this as well, just so that we can show feedback. The Zoom bar is getting really annoying. Okay, ls no cd into Next.js and then your yarn dev. And fundamentally, the only thing you need in order to run this is yarn dev. That's literally it. I'm seeing that my port is already in use, so let me fix that in a second. There we go.
This is a classic
So you
Web3 thing, is you have a chain running somewhere else also, right? You either have a chain or a dev
Yeah.
server running somewhere else on the same port.
Exactly. So what you can do again is you can just clone the repo, and then you just yarn to install your dependencies, and then you can just yarn dev to make it run. And the only thing you'll need again is a magic key in order to have authentication. That said, as we said, Next.js is very simple, and it's a tool that I highly recommend, especially if you use Create React App. And what you'll, as I get a bunch of exceptions, I guess I'll have to add a key. You know, I'm gonna leak my key, I guess. If you guys want to steal my coins,
I'm not looking. I'm not looking.
I gotta delete the project later. That's okay. But anyway,
cool.
We're gonna create a new file with a .env, and then we just need to add a key called the next public magic key. And again, Jamin, if you're watching, invalidate this key. Otherwise, I'll just delete my own. And we can restart the server to inject the environment variables. Next.js comes with already reads .env files. You don't have to do anything besides using the next_public, which makes it really convenient. And now we finally have our application started. What you'll notice is that fundamentally we have a new component called sign up, and we also have a new folder called context. Context, which is used for the user context, which is just the scaffold or the basics for handling authentication. And if you enjoy using Magic, you can just literally just add the Magic key and you're good to go. Otherwise, if you prefer changing this to a different setup, you can just customize the login and the persist user functions to make it so that you can literally integrate it with anything else. So I personally teach a product which is called Strapi, which you can check at strapi.io. I'm author of a course called the Complete Strapi Course. And the advantage of using Strapi is that imagine spending a month building up your Node.js server and then having no admin panel, which basically means as a developer that now the rest of the company depends on you. Because anytime you need to fetch some data, hey, Alex, how do you fetch the data? Anytime you need to build a dashboard, hey, Alex, can you build a dashboard? Fundamentally, you're going to drive yourself insane, especially if you're a small company that needs to be nimble. So what I personally do is, unless I have a very good reason to use a microservice or something custom, I'll just use Strapi. Strapi basically provides a very thin layer on top of my database, and it also provides the admin panel, which means that now a marketer, a writer, the entrepreneur, other people can just check all of that data, and they're able to interact with the database without having the need for being babysit. So we'll probably come back later to that, as I also built an integration to allow you to register your user from Strapi to with Magic, which basically means that if you use Magic, you can talk to Strapi very easily. But fundamentally, at this point, we have the user context. We have just very, very, very thin layer. And let me see if I added it here. I'll probably add a second version, which I'll explore in the other project called the Magic Wallet, where the one downside of using Magic is that you have to wait for a couple seconds for Magic to tell you that you're logged in. This is something that you could experience if you go to Polymarket. Also, if you go to Foundation App or Arzora, they all use Magic. And what you notice on the top right is that you may feel like you got logged out if you refresh the page. That's because in order to show you that idea that you're already logged in, we have to do a little bit of a hack, which I'll get into in a few minutes. But so if you want to improve your product, you should probably pay close attention to what I'm going to tell you in a few minutes. That said, the other element we have is the component for sign up. And again, it's just a form, handle submit, just something that every project needs. So I thought it was a good idea to add. And again, you have jest, which means that anytime you want to add a test, you can add it to the test folder. Although I personally prefer just having, utils, name of the file, such as, and I guess we'll dig into that in a second. And then we also have a linter so that our code is nice and clean and easy to use. And if I'm not mistaken, there's even Husky, which is going to drive you nuts when you're pressed to push your code, because it will ensure that you cannot even push it unless you write it properly. So now, if you are a perfectionist, you want to make sure you always deliver code that is easy to use and easy to read. Now Husky will force you to do that as well. So this is kind of the basics. And what I can show you in very literally 2 seconds, I can show you what I did throughout these months. So while being lead developer at Polymarket, having balls going around and having to manage a bunch of people and working together to build the product, I was able to ship Espertidol Live, which is a product where I can sell my consultations by the hour, where a person pays for credits. They get in touch with me, and I can give them a consultation by the hour by using Stripe for payment purchasing. And I don't have to have a very complex sign-up flow, because again, I can just use Magic. I also don't have to spend hundreds of dollars of hosting to have this kind of load optimization, because I'm using Next.js and I'm serving it through Vercel. So fundamentally, with $22 a month, I have a CI/CD setup, I have a workflow setup, I have cache optimization, and the user experience is is stellar, considering that I'm literally one person that is already having I already have a job. So I'm trying to trying my best to squeeze as maximum potentiality that I have out of my own time. And the other project that was also sponsored by Magic, and that I literally launched a video yesterday. So if you want to find me on YouTube, you can go on YouTube and search for Alex the Entreprenerd, and you'll find me, and you'll find the Magic Wallet, which is a way or something that I built by using the boilerplate. So Magic Wallet is basically the foundation for a, let's call it DeFi wallet, because it sounds cool, but fundamentally it's what we used to call an Ethereum wallet, because before there was DeFi, there was the Ethereum wallet, which an Ethereum wallet means that you can hold ETH and you can hold ERC20s. That's basically what it is. It's just a basic wallet. It's completely open source. You can rip it apart. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted to have a very solid understanding of Ethers, so that I could start teaching it to my students in the future. So we have a homepage where you're given an address. So okay, before I jump too fast, I want to make sure everybody understands this. If you're using Magic, if you use Magic, okay, you pay $7 a month, whatever, you pay a little bit of money to use Magic. Magic provides authentication for your app, but it also provides what is called a signer or a provider. A signer, as we'll see later, is the entity that can sign transactions on the chain. A provider is the entity that can instead fetch data from the chain. So once you understand that Magic makes it very easy to log in, and it makes it very easy to interact with Ethereum, you can understand that if you have issues with user experience, especially, let's say, 3 days ago, there was a talk on Clubhouse by Andre Cronje about the fact that the interface is not there yet. I would recommend that you guys check out what we did at Polymarket, and you also check out what you can do with Magic, where you don't have to ask for the allowance every single time you run a transaction. You don't have to show the approval message every single time. You can just use Magic, and it's going to make the user experience way simpler. Now, obviously, this is a hot wallet. So if you're part of the Ethereum crowd, you understand that a hot wallet is a dangerous wallet. Okay, and I'll throw like something that you super advanced Solidity guys can think of. But what if there was a way to delegate credit from your cold wallet to a hot wallet? So what if there was a way, let's say you deposit on Aave, and now you can delegate the credit to your hot wallet. Now you're making a tool like Magic Link, which provides insanely great user experience. And I'll show you, like if I want to send Ethereum, I just put an address, I just look at this, and I press a button, and fundamentally it's just gonna, I don't have 12 ETH here, I have like $1, I guess. But fundamentally, it's simplifying user experience, and it's simplifying the interactivity, while maintaining, but making it work basically. So
Do
the
you see
way I see
300
it,
gwei there too? The gas price was at 300 gwei right
yeah,
now.
yeah, absolutely. So and I guess that goes to show other challenges that this industry will face. But although fundamentally the solution for that is to draw a comparison from TradFi, where if you can have a transaction that takes a day and your transaction is not time sensitive, let's say depositing funds on Compound, such as mint, the mint function for a C token, that's not a time sensitive function. So fundamentally, you could have super low gwei, or you could have what I believe everybody will use, which is just bulk, a way to bulk transactions. Although again, this is way more modest. This is such a modest first step. But again, I'm trying to teach the tech to myself very well so I can teach it to others. And at the same time, it's completely free, completely open source. So if you want to just steal my code, I want you to be successful with it. I'm going to be happy. So going
That's to
from
dive into that a little bit more. That's like why I do the Shill your stack is like, let's go
yeah,
find these opinionated templates that other people have built. Cause I'm building my own opinionated template, but let's go see the other ones and let's go see the other opinions. And then our metric of success is how many weird forks of this do we see out in the wild, right?
yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of the thank you economy, is that you can just have very few clients and you can still do amazingly well, and you can help other people just pursuing their dreams. So I really believe in the thank you economy, and I'm very happy to just participate in it. So I want to draw the comparison between what we have here in the template versus what I did on the Magic Wallet. So if you look at the template, you'll see that we have the context, the components, pages, and then we have styles and tests. What we have here on the left is instead we also have ABI, which is a keyword that Solidity developers are very familiar with, but we'll get to that in a second. Then we have components, which is just presentational stuff. We have our context, which is literally ported over with some extra nice to haves that I'll go over. Then we have hooks, which allow us to fetch data in a very convenient way, in a reusable way, if you're familiar with React. And then we have interfaces. Yeah, we just have type definitions, basically. And the last folder is the utils. And the utils folder, we start seeing very important files, which are the test files, where the stuff that is really core is being unit tested, so that I'm not just making random promises and then sending your money to the OX00 address, sending one Satoshi every transaction to OX, because just for the memes. So you can actually check the tests. And fundamentally, in order to use Magic Wallet, again, you just need a magic key. So you can see a demo of Magic Wallet at magicwallet.xyz. And you can see, and there's also a video tutorial that I made where you can also see the tour in a more structured way, not through a script. But that said, what do we have here? We have a way to track your balance, a way to track your address that is, again, one email, one public key from Magic will derive one address. And if you're interested in their security model, it's called delegated private key management, which makes it so that even they are not aware of the private key that they're using, making it so that literally they are blind to them. They just have a little like a pit where the private key is thrown. You, through you signing your own email, are able to get the private key without knowing what it is and using it. Again, it's called delegated key management. There's a patent on it. You can, again, do your own research as everything. But I believe it's for a burner wallet or for a hot wallet, it's a pretty responsible approach. Again, considering, again, it's a hot wallet. That said, we also have a way to track quantities. And I think this is one of the coolest things I've learned in building it, and something that you can also, maybe even the guys at MetaMask can pick this up, little poke at them. Then we have a way to receive. We show a QR code, we show an address. And lastly, we have a way to send. We get the gas off of an API, and we allow you to send those funds. So now, with your permission, I'm going to go deep in the code. All right. And
yeah, heck yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to see some code.
Amazing. And as you can see here, we have an app component, which allows us to have the user context provider, nothing out of the ordinary here. And then we have our index, which is literally the only page that currently this wallet has, which checks for the user. We have the use user hook. And once we have a user, if we are not logged in, we're going to show a sign up form, which is basically just the email field. And once we are logged in, we're going to show the wallet. Now, let me see if there's already some optimization here. No, it doesn't.
And does that
look like
user
there is.
object have the provider and the signer in it, or are we getting the provider and signer from somewhere else? It comes right in that user object?
Exactly. Cool. Let's go in the context. So in the context, we have a few methods. Basically, we have a way to log in and a way to log out, which are very basic. And then we have a method which is called get address and provider, which is just really convenient and really practical. So as soon as the user is logged in, what happens is Magic basically unlocks your delegated key, which allows you again to sign transaction. And now you can feed your RPC provider from Magic into an Ether's Web3 provider, making it so that this Web3 provider can now sign transactions for you. So you can use it to sign your own transactions. So if you check the provider that we have here, after you pass the RPC provider, this provider will have your address. And that's what we do here on line 43. We do signer.getAddress to retrieve the address, which is basically this address right here. And there's also a nice copy component that allows you to pass that along. And then what we do is we store that in the user object by setting user here with the email, the address, and the provider. Again, something that happens with Magic, because you're using a third-party API to authenticate, is that every time you refresh the page, you need to log back in. Okay, something to keep in mind. And I'll have to remember which project I already have the load optimization done. But fundamentally, what you can do in order to ensure that you're logged in is to call a method from Magic called magic.user.isLoggedIn. And if the user is logged in, then you can retrieve all of that data. And that's how you have session persistence. Okay, and some of our users on Brave will have a little bit of a harder time with that because Brave deletes all of your cookies and your local storage. But don't worry, you can persevere. It will eventually work, especially if you're vocal enough. And fundamentally, at this point, we have a user which also has, again, the provider and the signer. These are the two main keywords. So to draw a comparison, if you want to, if you're just getting started with Ethereum, you've never had any experience with it, now you have a way to receive money and you have a way to send money. Okay, so this will be the equivalent of having MetaMask without having to download it, to install it, to store your seed phrase, and to interact with the interface. So now
with the quick trade-off, though, that it's this kind of, you said this pit, it's sort of custodial, it's sort of a custodial solution, but it's like they're holding your key in a way that they can't get to it, just to like add that little trade-off. Like when you go with MetaMask, the UX is going to be worse, but you're sort of in charge. You're fully custodial, you're in charge of your key, right? Just to add that in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd have to say I'm a fan of your solution, the Burner wallet, which I thought was really smart solution. And I think there are other solutions that can be used to basically, for example, use MetaMask to generate a ephemeral wallet, basically generate a Burner wallet off of a MetaMask signature. The problem though is if somebody else uses the same message that you have to sign, they now can steal your funds. They basically can access. So unfortunately, the clunkiness is kind of a feature more so than a bug. And it's because it's clunky, it's harder for other people to steal your funds, basically. So yeah, we're just at a point in time where there are these types of trade-offs. And I think, just transparency and making your own decision is definitely the most important point of it all, so that you know what's going on. And so I appreciate the parentheses. That said, let's look at a little bit of code for getting your balance, getting your ERC20s and sending them. So this is where we start to look at, actually, let's go in the components, and you can see that there's a few, but let's look at the wallet component, which is the most important component. And you can see that we have a bunch of stuff, but fundamentally the two most important things are here. We have a use if balance hook, and then we have a use ERC20 hook. So I'm going to open up the use if balance hook. I open up the hooks folder in use if balances. And what you can see here is that we have, a custom hook. There's a new keyword called big number, and big number is a way to represent numbers that are immense. And if you start looking through Solidity, you'll see that many numbers in Ethereum have, 18 decimals as when they're small. One ether is 18, has 18 decimals, or 18. How do you say it? Digits. So you have 18 digits, which means that JavaScript, if JavaScript were to handle this type of operations, it would have issues. It will crash. It will break. You will have the wrong math. And so we use big number as a way to represent numbers in a way that is manageable. And as you can see, we have a default here to a balance set to big number from 0. So we set it to 0. And then what we do is we have a function called fetch user that, again, if there's no user, you have no balance. And then what we're going to do is we're going to call a function called get if balance. So the reason why I like to structure my code in this way is that especially as a solopreneur. So if you start looking into testing, especially, okay, I've consulted over 500 people in a year. So I know that the majority of people never do tests in their lives. Okay. 99% of people will say we should do testing, then don't actually do them. Okay. That's something I want to say. So even at the top companies, most people never get to test. The test is the poor guy in the corner doing manual tests, Okay, so that's kind of the reality that I've seen. So my approach to testing is that if we're going to test something, we may as well just test the function that is really important, and then just build everything else around the fact that we already tested that. So what I did is I have the hook, and there's no point in testing the hook or testing the representational component, because now I would have to set up a fake blockchain with data pre-populated and then mock my function. And basically I would have to spend a week setting up the testing environment to test a couple of functions, when what I can do is I can just test the function right here and just see if that works. Okay, so that's the approach to unit testing that I take, and that just ensures that the real core stuff is tested. And then if you do need the extra stuff, you're gonna have to spend a lot of time to get that. But fundamentally, let's look at what get.
How is that tested again? You said that it's tested right here. What do you mean by that?
No, I'll show you an example as we go into the transactions, etc.
Perfect.
But fundamentally, when it comes to, let me see the use if balance. So when it comes to use if balance, we just need to, this is literally, we just get our address, and then we just call provider.get balance. So anytime you need to get the balance, it's actually a very straightforward process. And you just need to know that that's how you do it. You just ask to the provider to get the balance of the address, and that's how you do that. And so actually, if you think about it, fortunately enough, ethers being unit tested means that you don't necessarily need to test this method, because it's already unit tested by them. So let me show you what I actually did end up testing. So let's go back to the use ERC20 balances, which, as you can see, uses a different type called the token with balance, with a list of token with balances, and we can look at the interface of it. But fundamentally is a token which has an address, chain ID, name, symbol, etc. And so when I start to talk about this, I have to plug Uniswap with their token list standard. So what I did, and what I did multiple times, is I went on tokenlist.org, or actually on Uniswap, to be fair.
Such a cool setup.
It's a really amazing setup. And unfortunately, if you go through the docs, there is no easy way to scrape that. So, Uniswap grants, if you want to sponsor me, I'd be happy to open source a way to scrape your token list. But that said, what you can do if you're a smart enough developer is you can go on the network and realize that every time you're loading the token lists, you'll see that there's a service worker here, or it's called service worker. It's just an API. And what you can do, and which is what I did here in the tokens.ts, is you can just make a GET request to the token and then pass the URL of the token list. In this case, it's the 1-inch token list. And they will provide you with a cached and centralized response that allows you to fetch this data without having to figure out exactly how token lists are done. From my understanding, because I literally was working on and I'm going on a side tangent, cut me off when it's too side tangenty, but fundamentally, I literally started scraping off the token list standard from Uniswap, and I realized that they started coding their front end around 2018. So there was no centralized way to, there was no Cloudflare way to resolve a .if link. So fundamentally, they built a very complex solution because they had to at the time. But I'm pretty sure that we could build a get token list package now in a way simpler way. So again, Uniswap grants, if you want to delegate that to me, I'd be happy to take that. But that said, in this product, I just fetch the list of tokens. And what can I do with the list of tokens? This introduces the third element that is core when you study ethers. First being provider, second being signer, the third being contract. Contract is basically the most important keyword you're going to see in ethers. And so when you start to work with tokens, again, you have the token list. And as we showed you, we have an address and we have a symbol and we have decimals and we have a logo URI. So basically we have all very important information because we also know that every token comes from the same standard, which is the ERC20 standard. And if you have enough experience working with Solidity, you'll know that if a token is built with the same interface, then you just need to have one interface, or in our case, we can call it ABI. That's what we call it. We have the ABI, and having the ABI for a ERC20 now allows us, using this magical keyword, which we still haven't seen, called contract, to interact with this ERC20. So if I go on use ERC20 balances, I see get tokens balances given the user.provider. And what we see here is that we're going to fetch our tokens, which again is just a centralized list provided by the Uniswap server. Then we get the signer, and specifically we just get the address of our user. And then we call get ethers balances, which I thought was literally something really cool. And basically there's a open source package called if balance checker, which unfortunately is no longer maintained. So I had to scrape that as well. But basically the if balance checker package allows you, they deployed a smart contract that allows you with one single view call, it allows you to fetch the balances of as many tokens as you want. So instead of having to set up a graph and query the entire 11 millions of history of blocks and figure out where the transactions are and do all the math, instead of having to loop over the list, you can literally just make a request to these smart contracts, and through the magic of Solidity, it will be more efficient than looping and iterating over a bunch of promises. And so finally, we get to our keyword called contract, right? We have a contract, with the contract being this contract right here, which has an address, which I hard-coded here. I scraped it off of his documentation. We have an ABI, which again, I scraped off of his documentation. And lastly, we have our provider. And the provider is necessary when you generate a contract, because if it's a provider that is just a provider, you can read that data. While if it's a signer, you can actually sign the data, i.e. you can interact with the smart contract. So the last thing I do here, since there's no point in having a list of tokens without balances, I may as well just enrich the list of tokens with the balances so that it's more convenient to develop with them. So what I do is I merge them and then I sort them by balance, making it so that if you go on the Magic Wallet address and if you if you have more than one token, you're going to actually see that. And I'm happy to take the hit and send myself one DAI as a demo. I don't mind.
Send me an address. I can do it. Wait, it's like mainnet's like really expensive right now though. It's like 300 Gwei.
I'm not sure if I have the Gwei though.
Oh, it's only 177.
Yeah, we'll
it's $28 demo.
Yeah, it's okay. But you have to do it though. Like as a developer that interacts with smart contracts, there comes a time where, like the joke, because if you know Polymarket is on Matic, so there's a bridge. There comes a time where you have to bridge 1,000 of your own money, okay? And you have to have the courage to bridge those. Otherwise you're a hypocrite because people are gonna put their own funds. So that's
this
okay.
and this exact setup is the same for anything, even like minting NFTs. Like as an artist, if you want to put your NFT on Ethereum right now, it might cost you $40 to $50 to put that thing there, but you just got to do it. You have to have the confidence and go after it.
You do, you really do. Although it's actually very interesting to me that removing fees. like like there's the idea of the Gestalt theory in psychology, that it says that the entity's value is greater than the sum of its parts. And so what happens when you remove fees is that there are unintended consequences that make adoption so much greater. So it's actually really it's just fees are part of the deal, but we do have to get rid of them and find smarter solutions. And perhaps at the end of this video, I'll make a couple of speculations as to what I see, especially with the adoption of DeFi. I have a couple of numbers that I scraped manually that I think are really interesting relating to that. Now, that
There's
said,
our one die.
I did get the die, right?
Yes.
And so
Great live demo.
yeah, amazing. So it does work. I'm not shilling something that is broken.
And that could have been that could have been any token in that list, and this thing is going to take care of that.
Any token in a list.
And to do that,
exactly,
like, you went and got an npm package, and that npm package has deployed a magic contract that checks balances. But as a developer, now you can just kind of npm install the ability to just have a bunch of these token balances displayed in your app. That's cool.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's actually something that, I've had the same experience with MetaMask, where some of the tokens are not there. While if you go through, the really advanced DeFi list that you can find on Uniswap, those tokens are there. So my note on that is that if I had a more centralized solution, I will just take a massive list of these tokens and just make a bunch of view requests per address. There's no reason not to. And it's really inexpensive, because this is one RPC request. And in the case of Magic, the RPC request is handled by them. So you don't even have to spin up your own node. It's like all of this stuff that we may take for granted is completely abstracted away. So you don't need to have your own node. You don't need to have your infrastructure. You're just tapping into that. And yeah.
So to close this out, could we look, so thinking about if I was an app developer, what does the send look like? Can we click into the send, maybe see some of the UI, and then maybe actually go look at, so when you type in, let's see, when you type in 1 ETH here or something like that, does it show you USD?
You're not gonna be able to,
there you go. Now switch it to USD
let's say I want to
real
send
quick.
1,000. Yeah. It's going to take your maximum amount and it's going to allow you to move it. So that means that if I try and type more, it actually is not going to let me. Okay. And there's a set of validation. And the interesting thing I did here is that this is something that happens, especially if you're starting out, is that let's say I want to send all my Ether to myself. Okay, I'm going to leak my address, whatever. This is the development address for tips, guys. So if I send, basically, if I send all of these ETH, Ether's default provider is not going to calculate the cost of the transaction, deduct that, and then send the amount. Okay, it's just going to revert. It's just going to say recipient max funds, whatever. You don't have enough money. It's going to say you're broke. It doesn't work. So what I did with again another function that is unit tested here in the transactions is we have a get where is it, get max ETH after gas that receives the amount you want to send, the maximum amount of ETH you have, and the gas price you're going to pay, and it figures out what you actually can get away with sending versus how much you have to pay for the transaction. And in terms of fetching gas, we just have the if gas station API. And if you want to extend this, you can just, instead of just getting gas price.fast, you can just get whichever version you have. So if you look at Argent, they have free bunnies. You can add the free bunnies in a few minutes if you just copy and paste this and add variations.
It's fun to see the similarities between stacks too. Like when you're trying to set up a stack for someone and I'm trying to set up a stack for someone, we both have a use balance hook. We both have a use gas hook. We probably both have a use contract loader and use contract reader. Like all those hooks start to be really handy. And that's what's cool about these setups is when you go into a hackathon, you usually spend the first 40 to 60% totally just setting up your stack. And now we have, that's why the Shill Your Stack session is all about, you don't have to set up a stack anymore. There's lots of opinionated stacks out there for you to just clone and kind of build something off the shelf. What's let's close it out with one last, I was wondering if you selected, like if you wanted to send $100 in ETH, do you have the ability to do that in your UI? Like if
Currently,
I go
no.
to ETH, okay, cool. Just wondering
No,
about little
because it's
things
not
like
gonna
that.
show
Yeah,
you. But
cool.
yeah, the thing I was thinking about, because yeah, what's left here, to be honest, I would say the next step is to add a landing section, just landing to compound, and perhaps even a gambling section. You know, landing to yearn. That's very interesting. And I guess I'll speak to a couple of things as a developer, like as a developer entrepreneur. You have to look at your own like opportunity cost. So let's look for a second at what Compound did. And let's also look at Yearn for a second. But fundamentally, if you go through the docs and you literally look like at product market fit, as in, if I work on Compound, how many users can I get? Like that would be a good idea as an entrepreneur. Instead of saying how much money, let's look at how many users. So the most popular one is the CUSDC, and you'll see that it has over 200,000 addresses. And this is speculation, but I would assume it's because services like Argent exist and allow you to connect to this, and it makes it super easy. Let's look at Yearn, and if I'm not mistaken, most of the vaults are in the thousands, and the one vault that is super popular is the YCRV. And I'm actually, and you can just check by looking at how many holders of the token are, but you can see there's 6,000 people. So fundamentally, while Yearn is, you could argue it's a better reward for your risk profile, because you can say you can get 40% on your DAI or whatever, but fundamentally the amount of people that can even understand how to use it is super small. And that can be an opportunity, but that can also be an indicator that, it's just we're at a point where we're still tinkerers more so than than having mass adoption. So if you want, I will close this out by showing Strapi for 2 seconds and show you what we did at Polymarket.
Sounds great.
Or at least what I did during my time at Polymarket. And so I want to show all the Polymarket, because this is how we got to where we are today. And this is the oldest version, and you'll see that it's super slow. It's very clunky. It requires MetaMask, and and this is on mainnet, by the way. So you would have to pay $500 to make a few dollars. But the way we were able to even do this clunky setup is by using a tool such as Strapi that makes it so that instead of having every single time to wait either for the signer or wait for the graph or like fetch all this data, which, how are you going to even store images? Are you going to store them on IPFS? Are you going to do all these very intricate and complex setups where it takes 1 minute to load your app? And I'm talking about our competitors. Our competitors takes 1 minute to load their app. But fundamentally, what we did is we're like, no, the data for trading, this is like sacred. You can't manipulate that. It can't be centralized. It has to come from on chain. So whenever it comes to the core stuff, you have to do it on chain. So if it takes a minute to load, that's okay. But when it comes to the first paint, to the user just having to have that initial thing, we just cached as much as we could. And in our case, we used a tool called Strapi, just because it just made it very convenient for everyone, because you can just set up a cron, you just do all the expensive computation asynchronously, and then you can just customize that data like that. And so if you iterate multiple versions, we had an intermediary version called oldopolymarket.com, where we do have magic, but we still are using Create React App, where you see that you have a white screen, there's no metadata. And then we look at the last version, which as you can see, literally loads at the speed of thought. And it loads at the speed of thought because it's statically built, and there's like 10 microservices to cache all that data. But when it comes to the core data here, it may take a little longer because we want to ensure that that's real. But that we did it in a way to not to offer still the best experience, especially to people that are just coming in. So fundamentally,
there's like a couple things to lean into here in terms of like mainstream audiences, right? One thing is key management. You've done some magic here to kind of offload your key management. The second thing is this first paint that you're talking about. Basically, this read-only view of DeFi should be immediate. It's not until you write that you should have to take the time to have to load up all these signers and everything.
Yeah, and I mean, if you just talk to your user and you look at what they do, the reality is most people are compulsory control error, like refreshers. They just compulsorily refresh. So you may as well just put a Redis Redis cache to cache all of your data, have these expensive processes be done asynchronously. And then even if your data updates every once a minute, nobody cares about a 13-second update. And even actually, no, even the fact that Ethereum is that slow, no offense, it's 13 seconds, actually lends itself to it being cached, because, you know, in 13 seconds, you can get 1,000 requests. You may as well just cache them on a Redis layer. So I would say a microservices oriented architecture where you just have this small Node.js server fetching the data and then caching it so that you can have those fast paints, and then having a static site generation, and then adding this web-free stuff on top makes it so that the performance is so much better. So
and by the way, like, that front
yeah,
end can still be stored in IPFS. That contract can
yeah,
still be accessed decentralized, right?
yeah,
The contract itself, the system on Ethereum is still decentralized. What we're caching and what the magic we're doing here is just for the user to see things quicker and to have a better experience. But
yeah,
if everything goes down, if all of this gets censored, you can still go to the contract on
yeah,
Etherscan or on your own node and access it. To
yeah,
dive in a little bit more, like with Nifty Inc., we created a pinning. We needed an IPFS pinning service, right? We didn't want to send all of that to IPFS.
yeah.
So we created our own pinner. And that's just an idea. You just have to have your own infrastructure to kind of like make that experience just
Yeah,
a little
what I
bit
will
better, right?
add, yeah, what I will add is that if you you know, it really depends on the end user, but if you truly value the you know, the autonomous verification where you can verify the files, you could have a static build. Okay, you could have a static build, which every build has a checksum, because you just transform all of the data into bytes and you get a checksum out of that.
And as soon
Then
as
you
it
publish the
changes,
static
yeah.
build on IPFS, and you can always have proof that the build is consistent with what was published. So
Yeah,
you
because
can
this
have
was slow,
cache
right?
and
That page
delayed
load took a
verification.
while.
Yeah,
Yep.
and yeah,
Yep.
I would say that's the one thing where I would really shill my stack to you, is you can take your extreme in-depth knowledge, just replace Next.js with your Create React app. Just use Next.js for a month or just for one project. Realize that
We
you
need
could
to.
have had instant loading of all the nifties, instant, and then you can load more later, but at least the first time a customer comes in, they get the best experience that you can offer.
It's already taken a lot of tricks just to get it to there, but I'm with you. So Next.js could be a replacement for our Create React app, and that's going to provide that server side rendering. Dope.
Absolutely. And then
Awesome. All
if
right.
you want to do very short projects, I think Magic saves you a lot of
Yep.
time. Last shield that I have is the if you're gonna use Strapi, you can literally type Strapi Magic on
Oh,
npm.js,
there's
and there's
one for
literally a
both.
plugin
Dope.
that, given a Magic authentication Magic bearer token, you can just store data on Strapi. So basically, people can just store their data there, which again makes it so that you can load faster while maintaining security. So this is literally the reason why I chose to use this stack, is that, you know, it takes a long time to make a bunch of decisions, and but fundamentally, once you did all of these decisions, you can build, let's say, a product every month while having a stable job. So if you're looking to become very effective, very productive, I would highly recommend Next.js. Definitely check out Magic, and absolutely Ethers. Absolutely use Ethers over any other tool for Web3. And then definitely look at dynamic generation, or I guess static generation as a cache, and then dynamic generation to enrich the data to the point
Where's the
where
repo? Can we end with your repo? It's one of these
absolutely
tabs here.
you can check out github.com/galodasballo, or you can search for entrepreneur.xyz. All of my
Dope.
resources are here. You just click on GitHub, you get the downloads. Everything is open source. You can enjoy it. And absolutely. So I very much appreciate the time you gave me, and I look forward to see you guys succeeding with Ethers, Magic, and Next.js.
Yep. I look forward to seeing just awesome products getting created and having these cool templates standing up so we can get in and just kind of fork them and make new products left and right. Alex the Entrepreneur, shill your stack. Happy Bowtie Friday. See you, man. Thank you.
Awesome.